Welcome to Hanging at the Hangar Bar. I'm Scott.
I'm Candice.
I'm Lariah.
And I'm Lacey. Grab a drink and come hang with us at the Hangar Bar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hangar Bar. Candice and I have been arguing. Okay, I don't know if we've been arguing so much as we've been debating, but we'll let you decide, because today we are going to continue this discussion that we've been having, but you get to hear us have this discussion because we were thinking the other night that we think this would be something that would be fun for others to listen to, right?
Yes. But before we get started, I did just want to put a little reminder out there that we are about 2 weeks away from our first ever Hanging at the Hangar Bar book club discussion. That is going to be taking place on March 27th. We are in the process of getting that all set up. We will have links on our socials as soon as we have that set up. And once again, the reminder of the book is Women of Walt Disney Imagineering. If you're a quick reader, you still have time to join us, so please do.
I still have about 150 pages to read, but we're getting there. It's a good book.
I like it.
Listen in.
Yep.
So Candice and I have been talking about a potential Disney trip later this year.
It will be our first time since prior to pandemic.
Yeah, so it would be my first time since September of 2019. Candice's first time back since
November of 2019.
November, because she went for the Disney Institute a couple months after we came back from the trip with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our conundrum and what we've been debating. We have planned for this year already an Alaska cruise that's not on the Disney line. Bucket list trip for my mom, 80th birthday. We are looking at 7 days, leaving out of Seattle, getting back into Seattle, and looks like a fantastic trip. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be fun, but I'm jonesing for Disney.
I agree.
And
not that should surprise anyone that knows us at all.
Right. We're like, we just can't not go. And
yet we can not go. I
right.
mean,
yeah, we can not go, and that would be okay, because we've been talking for a long time about a 2024 trip to Disneyland, like going on a true Disney pilgrimage. And doing like a whole bunch of people potentially going with us on to Disneyland, or just us if they don't want to go. But that's kind of where we're at. Is we know 2024 we're planning something big Disney. We also know that there's a new cruise ship out there that we haven't been on. We haven't completed the fleet, and we haven't been to Disney in 4 years.
Right. Thank you, COVID.
Yeah, thank you, COVID. Suck it, COVID. So with a big trip planned where we're basically paying for ourselves to go and then paying half of my mom's fare, financial is a concern, because we are looking at, heck, I've been pricing Alaska cruise prices this summer for airfare. Like, we know what the cruise is going to cost. We're good with that.
We may have to walk to Seattle.
We may have to walk to Seattle, because right now economy class tickets are freaking ridiculous. Like, the cheapest I found, and I should have pulled the trigger when I saw it, was $1,600 round trip in economy for both of us to fly. Right now, as of last night, the cheapest was United out of Omaha for economy, which means we have to pay for bags, we have to do all of that, at $1,790 something. Delta was $1,850 something. You still have to pay for bags. Alaska Air economy was $2,400 for economy. American Airlines was $1,900 for economy. Southwest, which everybody associates with being a cheaper airline, what did I tell you? That one was $1,950 round trip. Mm-hmm. And that's us getting back into Omaha at midnight when we get back. So, like, when we're talking about financial considerations, if you think that $2,000 for economy flights, that's not even like economy plus or first class. You're looking at, that's half of our trip to Disney or more, right?
Mm-hmm. especially since when we're considering about going is going to be one of the peak seasons, because when I was at Disney Institute in 2019, of course, the parks and the resorts were all decorated for the holidays, and it was more magical, I think, than I've ever seen it before, and I want Scott to be able to experience that. But with that said, we understand that it's going to be a lot more expensive than when we typically go at the end of September, early October, just because of the season.
Yeah. And I may have to put a thumbnail of Candice's reaction to this next statement as the episode art for this one. She probably won't let me, so you probably won't see this as the episode art. Just know that the face she's about to make is going to be hilarious. I suggested we do Disney on the cheap. Oh, she didn't give me the face. It was just a shoulder shrug. So tell me what that's about.
Disney on the cheap is better than no Disney at all.
Yeah. Is that what you would have said a month ago?
No.
See, this is why we have these discussions over a long period of time, because it takes me a while to turn that big cruise ship.
Thank you for calling me a cruise ship that holds several thousand people, ass. There's your reaction. There's your thumbnail.
You know that is not what I meant. It just changing your mind is an awful lot like like moving a cruise ship. Like, your mind is big. So
don't just head for the iceberg, okay? You know better. Don't light the boilers if you don't want speed.
This was Scott's last podcast. His funeral services will be.
Except I don't do funerals either, so good luck.
That's right. Everyone else is welcome to join the funeral services after the book club.
Yeah, we'll have it on the same day. Anyway, we have gone far off course. Speaking of turning cruise ships.
Right. So, okay. So here's where the debate has been. Candice, tell me what doing Disney on the cheap means to you.
Okay, well, the first thing I think we need to talk about is hotel accommodations. I find a lot of value in staying within the Disney bubble and staying at a Walt Disney World Resort hotel, even if that is Swan and Dolphin, which is not on the cheap. It is not Disney-owned property, but it's still on the property bubble, which means you get to take advantage of the transportation. If there are dining package opportunities, you get to do that. And it's just, I mean, yes, there are good neighbor hotels that are right down the street, down International Boulevard, and there's a good number of them, and places I wouldn't probably mind staying. It's just a different feel for me, and you do have to leave the magic because you're actually staying at a quote-unquote regular hotel rather than a Disney resort.
Right.
So with that said, with doing Disney on the cheap for me, that would be a value resort, which I have issues with, and we can talk about that if you want to, or a moderate resort, something like Port Orleans French Quarter.
Okay.
Maybe not as many parks as we would normally do. And when we're talking about meals, maybe having like one table service, nice sit down reserved meal, and do the rest either with snacks or quick service. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on board with kind of what you're thinking in terms of cheap for the parks themselves. Like we've talked a little bit about, like, when I'm thinking on the cheap, let's get there, let's be in the magic, because I'm with you. Being in the magic is important, and not leaving the magic is important. And if we're gonna leave the magic from an expense standpoint, I'd rather try and convince you that of Disneyland than of Disney World.
Do that again, I'm sorry.
If we're gonna, so this is kind of combining conversations. We'll get back to the trip we're talking about in a minute. But if I'm going to try and talk you into staying off property, that's going to be at Disneyland, not Disney World.
That's going to be a real hard sell. Real hard. Just buckle up. Light the boilers the lowest they can, and I still wouldn't head toward that iceberg.
Which is exactly why I lit the match today. That's...
You know what happened to the people in the boiler room when it hit the iceberg, right? Do we need to watch the movie again? But anyway, I digress. Let's go.
This is why people enjoy our podcast.
Well, I hope they do. Tell your friends.
Tell everyone. Listen to Scott and Candice argue.
Of all the things we argue about, Disney's probably the biggest one, quite honestly.
That's probably true. So when we started talking about doing a trip to Florida on the cheap, we're talking about Christmas time. Like, we want to pick low crowds-ish, which there's a week or two window.
Or there used to be, at least.
Yeah. And so the other thing that we're doing is talking about completing the fleet of the Disney ships. The Wish has been sailing for a few months now. They've worked out most of the kinks, I think.
We hope. I think the whole thing is still a big kink, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we're not really...
And it's not fair to say because I haven't been on the ship yet, but what I've seen is it's very, very kid-focused, and it loses some of the majesty and traditional cruising feel of a regular Disney ship.
Yeah, so Candice, tell me what, like, a typical... to you, what a land and sea vacation would look like, just like what you would typically want to plan. Don't think about what we've been talking about. Talk about what you would normally plan.
Normally, and it's not going to be dream land sea either because we've not done that. It's just a dream. So I think regular land sea, I think it would be important to have like 3 days available in the parks, including the day that you arrive, which the way we travel, we don't do a park on the first day we arrive. We go hang out at Disney Springs. That's your first day. So then you have 2 days to go explore the parks however you will. And then the fourth day, you would go look for your friendly Disney Cruise Line cast member to take you to the ship, and away you go.
Okay. And what's the cruise look like on the back end of that?
On the back end of that, I would like to see at least a 4-day.
Okay.
If not longer, just because we love days at sea, and it seems like if you do a 3-day cruise, it's very, very short. Like you have maybe 1 day at sea, and then you're in ports, and of course you have to go aboard land when you are at Castaway Cay because it's amazing.
Right.
But then you turn around and you're right back to the stress of all of it, and Disney dealing with Miami International and airlines and people and all the things.
And all the things. So just a little piece of advice to kind of think about that we always make sure we tell people when we're talking about land and sea cruises. Our best advice is do your cruise second.
Absolutely. So you can get the stress of the parks out of the way first, have the time at sea to relax and rejuvenate and actually enjoy your vacation, and then come back and get stressed out again. Yeah,
we've said that planning a Disney World vacation and going to Disney World is not a relaxing vacation. If you're going to Disney to relax, you might find moments of relaxation, but it's not going to be a relaxing trip. So do your cruise second. Other than money, why are we not talking about doing 4 days, 4 days, or 3 days, 4 days?
Time, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah, I think time is a big piece of it. Like, you don't get as much PTO as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be careful of that.
And I'm kind of running up against that with some other things that have gone on this year anyway.
Yeah.
So,
So kind of what we've been talking about is the week after Thanksgiving, maybe the first week of December in there. That 2-week time frame is typically a little less busy.
Or it used to be.
And I think it probably still is a little bit because everybody is either has gone for Thanksgiving because of the long weekend, or they're looking forward to a Christmas trip. Mm-hmm. So the big family kind of things are trying to pack in around those, not necessarily going in the middle. And we want to see Christmas, so we're talking about that. We have talked about, and I don't know that we've kind of narrowed this down. We'll talk through a little bit of this as we go. We've talked about 2 days in Disney World, and then a 3-day cruise. Because, and the reason, like, if you've listened at any length on this, Candice and I have always said 3-day cruises aren't worth it. 3-day cruises aren't worth it. There's a couple reasons why we're looking for a 3-day cruise. It's a checkbox.
It is. We're completing the fleet so we can still have that feather in our cap of, yes, we have been on every single one of the Disney cruise ships. We want our gold lanyards because this will be our 5th Disney cruise. So we will be graduating from the Silver Castaway Club, which you are automatically enrolled in the first time you complete a Disney cruise. Or you board a ship for a Disney cruise the first time. And then every 5, or I think it's every... or is platinum 50? I don't know. Anyway, there's 3 different levels. There's silver, gold, and platinum. And they each come with some different perks, including lovely lanyards that you get to wear your key cards during your trip. And we want our gold. We've been waiting to get that gold lanyard for a long time.
Our last cruise was 7 years ago.
That's a long time. Well, our last Disney cruise. Was 7 years ago. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And so we want those gold Castaway Club lanyards. We want to be able to say we've completed the fleet, and call it a morbid curiosity. I think that's more of what it is for the ship for me. We want to see the Wish.
Yeah, Candice and I watch way more Disney videos than we probably should, but it's our thing.
Surprise!
I'm not looking forward to that ship.
No.
Like, there's parts of it that look awesome, but there's parts of it that just, I think, are going to drive me insane. Like the fact that 2 of the 3 main restaurants are all show focused instead of dinner focused. The adults only area of the cruise ship is tiny. Like a single little infinity pool that looks like it holds maybe 10 or 15 people.
It's like Virgin sized.
Yeah, it's like the Virgin Cruise Line size pool. Go check out the Virgin Scarlet Lady deck plane to see just how small their pool is, but that's bigger than what is the adults only area on the adults only pool on the Wish. Captain Minnie, great. I love all of that. I love I'm sure the theming is going to be great, but in the Grand Atrium, there is a freaking slide down to the kids club in what's supposed to be a classy ship. It just, the bars, again, one of my knocks on the Virgin cruise ship was that most of the bars were just kind of along aisles and along walkways. Other than the Star Wars themed bar, it looks to be the same on the Wish. Like, everything's just kind of out in the open instead of having little places to go get away. And I don't know if that's just the current style of shipbuilding, or if there's some Imagineering reason for doing it that way. I don't know, but it kind of, I'm not looking forward to it.
And with hearing you say that, the current style, there again, Disney has always kind of been, when they started the cruise line, they were very focused on maintaining that traditional cruise elegance and classic appearance. And I think with the Wish, they have gone too trend forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So when we're that's one of the reasons we're talking about time. When we talk about doing it on the cheap, the other thing that we're talking about on the cruise portion of this is we've had, and we can talk about it more. Candice, I think I have her convinced. This would have been a more fun debate if I hadn't already convinced her. But when we travel on cruises, we typically like to have the veranda. That's typically with the lowest level that we'll go is kind of that veranda.
I'm fussy.
And it's okay, having that balcony to step out to when you get back to your room in the evening or whatever is really cool.
I'm sorry, but having coffee and breakfast out there in the morning is glorious.
Being able to open your door and hear the ocean and hear the ship run through the ocean is fantastic. I love that too. I think I have Candice convinced on an inside stateroom.
Primarily because we've never done it.
And that was one of my selling points to her was, how do we know if we like it or not if we haven't tried it? Because even our first cruise, which was on Carnival, we had an ocean view. So we had portholes. We could see out. But we've never been in an inside stateroom. And all the darkness that comes with an inside stateroom. So what's your hesitation about an inside stateroom?
Just the space. I like a lot of space. I don't want to feel like I'm sleeping in a closet. And I feel like it's going to throw me for a little bit of a loop, just because of how dark it actually is. Like, we won't be able to tell until we look at our phones or something what time it actually is.
Right.
So I think that's going to mess with me a little bit. But we won't know till we try.
Yep.
And on a short cruise, it's going to be better than a long cruise, I feel.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you don't want to get stuck in an inside stateroom if you're absolutely going to hate it on a 7-day cruise.
Exactly.
Give it a try for 3 days. And maybe if we really like how an inside stateroom goes and feels, all of a sudden that cuts our price of cruises by a third or more.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, maybe we can do 2 cruises a year instead of 1.
We'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there, Captain.
Again, Titanic turning is... She thinks I'm headed for an iceberg, right?
I think nothing.
Okay. So, and then the other thing, and this one's been a little bit harder sell, is because she has stayed in a value resort at Disney World. I have not. I have no interest in staying in like one of the All-Stars.
Okay.
None. Like the big, well, the All-Star movies. Like, is that the one where they have the different Disney animation, like the cartoon lands, and like there's the Lion King section and the Aladdin section, and
it's Art of Animation.
Is that so? That's not one of the
All-Stars.
That's not an All-Star.
It's still considered a value price resort until you get into the family suites, and those are more moderately priced.
Okay. So yeah, I don't think I have an interest in staying in one of the All-Stars, because that, no matter when you go, you're going to run into a cheerleader competition where they're staying there.
Or just a lot of kids. And
right.
Nothing against children, again, but we don't have them.
Right.
And it's the older we get, and I think I'm okay to say this, the tougher it is to deal with them.
Right. And yeah, as 240-something adults, like staying at a place where it's truly designed with families with little kids in mind, I don't know. And Disney's a place where it's kid forward everywhere you go. But you can plan your trip in a way that makes it to where, like, if you stay at the All-Star Sports, you have to expect there's going to be kids running around and screaming on the little football field and the baseball field and all of those kind of things. That's going to be there. So just avoid that if you want. And I think that's where we're at.
And those resorts are fine. And if that's what you can afford, and if that's where it takes us, that's where it takes us.
Right.
I'm fussy.
Yeah. So, like, I think the Art of Animation looks really cool as a place to stay. I think you're going to run into some of the same problems. Mm-hmm. But again, we're looking for, 2 days? Mm-hmm. We're talking the day you get there, a full day to go into a park, and then the day you leave for the cruise. So 2 nights is really what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into this in a little minute. In a minute, we'll just price out kind of what we're thinking. We'll get a couple prices, because then the alternate outside of like art, what are the other value resorts? So Art of Animation, the All-Stars.
That's really it for values.
Okay.
Pop Century.
Yeah, Pop Century looks like a cool one too. Mm-hmm. I'd probably be willing to try that. And then you move into the moderates, which is like Port Orleans, both Riverside,
Caribbean Beach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coronado Springs.
Yeah. What's the hotel that's a moderate that everybody says is very much has the amenities of deluxe?
Coronado Springs.
Okay.
And that's basically the Grand Destino Tower that they recently opened, is that section of the hotel. The only thing to think about with that particular hotel is it is a yonk and a half away from everything other than Animal Kingdom.
But it's also on the Skyliner loop, right?
It is. Mm-hmm.
So you have advantage of Skyliner at least. Maybe it's not. Candice is going to look up, and while she's there, I'm going to ask her to do some pricing. So, because that's been the thing. Like, if we talk about the difference between a value and a moderate, you're really talking like, this is going to sound horrible, but if is money going to be an object I know we're saying we're trying to do it on the cheap, but if it only costs us an extra $300 to move up a resort category, I think that's going to be one of those things we're going to be like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Unless, again, we want to try one of the lesser ones just to see what we think, because on a longer trip, that'll make it that much less expensive, and we could potentially go more. So this trip is, if we end up going, we're still kind of debating on whether or not we have the time and the money and the energy to go. But if we go, it's going to be an awful lot about experimenting, figuring out things, trying things that we've not tried before, and maybe doing things that we've not done.
No, Coronado Springs is not on the Skyliner. It's bus transportation only.
Okay.
And it is in the Animal Kingdom area, so it's a yonk and a half away from everything else.
Yeah.
But to be fair, so is Old Key West, and we love Old Key West.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, Old Key West is truly a yonk from everything. Except for Disney Springs.
Right. And then you just hop on a little boat, and there you go.
Exactly. Okay. So, and are you starting to work on pricing?
Well, I need to know what to price.
How much is it going to cost us to go to Disney we get there on one day, spend a day at one park, then get on the cruise ship the next day, 3 days on the Wish? What are the dates we're looking at, and what's the cost for value resort?
Okay, well, it's kind of a multi-price situation.
Okay.
So let's just talk the Disney World part of it, and then we'll talk about cruising.
Okay.
For a value resort, I have selected the Art of Animation Resort, and for just the two of us, I think a Little Mermaid room, which is their standard, plain, non-family suite room for that particular resort. For arriving November 29th and checking out on December 1st, which would be the day we would sail.
Okay.
That would be $479.
That's actually cheaper than what I thought it would be. Like, because that should be 2 nights. That's only like $200 a night.
A little bit more than that, but yeah.
Interesting.
But that's not park tickets. That's not...
Right. That's not food. That's just the cost for the hotel room.
Right.
Wow. Okay. That's actually more reasonable than I kind of thought.
Now, with park tickets, we can't add it to a package because it's a one-day ticket, but we do have to still have park reservations, so...
Right. Then how much is just ballpark a one-day park ticket?
For that time...
Without a hopper.
Right. For that time of year, I think we're probably looking at about $150 per ticket.
Okay. So before food, you're looking at $700 for that.
Right.
For us to just go get into one park and stay at a hotel for 2 nights.
Right.
Okay.
And that's not including anything that we would do at Disney Springs, day of arrival or anything
no
like that.
Food.
Just, right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how much more is it to stay at Port Orleans French Quarter?
The ticket, same price or same dates, the price bumps up to $612.
That's it? $200 difference.
It's about $100 a night.
Yeah. Humor me. How much is if we bump up to Contemporary?
You're so funny.
I'm interested. Because I would have thought, like, number one, I thought what the moderate would kind of be what the value price would be. I was thinking that was going to be $600 or $700 for the 2 nights. Moderate was going to be getting us close to $1,000. Which means, in my head, 2 nights at the Contemporary was going to be like $2,000. Like $1,000 a night.
Okay, well, those 2 nights at Contemporary in the main A-frame tower with a water view.
Okay.
Which is on the opposite side of the frame from
The
Theme
park.
Park View. Price comes out at $1,663.
Okay, so about $800 a night.
Right.
Okay. That's not going to happen for this trip.
That is not on the cheap.
That is not on the cheap. So which one of those 2 would you pick? I have my opinion, and my reasoning for why I pick what I would do is completely silly, but...
Quite honestly, I would pick French Quarter.
Tell me why.
because it's a smaller resort than Art of Animation. Art of Animation takes up a lot of space. It also shares, I mean, there's a walking path to get over to Pop Century and to the Skyliner, so there's that transportation option. Otherwise, you have to take a bus. At French Quarter, you can take the boat, the water taxis over to Disney Springs. You have to take a bus pretty much anywhere else, but still, there's that option.
Yeah.
And I just love that resort. It's small. It's sort of intimate. There's not all that many rooms over there. Yeah, you can go to Port Orleans Riverside, but ugh.
Yeah. So I would pick the same resort based on those pricing. Like the extra $200. Again, I thought the price difference was going to be massive. The reason I would pick French Quarter is because the day we leave for the cruise, I want to go get Mickey-shaped beignets to eat.
There you go.
As we wait to get on the bus or whatever to go to the cruise terminal.
Yep, and get on the charter bus covered in powdered sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
From the beignets.
Yeah, just get completely covered in powdered sugar from beignets and then go get on a cruise. That
sounds good to me.
So, okay.
It's not really on the cheap, but...
It's not on the cheap, but it's only two. Like that's what I was saying earlier. Is like that price difference. Like we are lucky enough, we're fortunate enough to be in the spot that $200, an increase of $200, is not like we can make that decision. That's not going to mean we can't go if we do that, or that we have to cut something else if we do that. Especially if we're talking about eating on the cheap, doing like one sit down meal at Disney Springs, and we'll get into parks here in just a second, but whatever we do for food, doing quick service or food booths or whatever, and kind of doing on the cheap food
and sharing
that we're lucky enough that I think we can make that decision. And that's definitely the call that I would make.
Plus I'm fussy, I'm fancy. I know who I am. Self-awareness is important.
Okay, so now how much does the cruise cost?
So with our price aboard the Disney Wish, sailing from Port Canaveral on December 1st through the 4th, we're looking at an inside stateroom in the forward of the ship. For both of us, the ports of call would be Port Canaveral, Nassau, which in my opinion is another day on the ship.
Right. That's because we're going on a 3-day. We're not going to get a day at sea. That will be our day at sea.
But not.
Right. We'll be in port, but we won't get off the ship.
Right. And then Castaway Cay.
Okay.
Would be our 3rd day, and then back to Port Canaveral.
And we will definitely get off the ship because I'm not going on another Caribbean cruise without getting my feet in the ocean.
Right. Prices with that, including taxes, fees, and port expenses, is $2,303.20.
Okay. So total price, Port Orleans inside stateroom, we're talking $3,000
before food or anything else.
Right, before food at the parks, because
or tickets
and drinks. No, that includes tickets, right?
Not park tickets. No.
I thought.
Yes, it did. Yes,
in.
it did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. No, not for Port Orleans. Art of Animation, it did. Add another $300 for park tickets.
Okay, so you're somewhere around $3,500.
Right.
Plus, if you factor in for food and drink another $500, figure $100 a day.
Right, plus flights.
And I looked up just one flight, and that's actually fairly inexpensive comparatively. So United out of Omaha, getting us into Orlando at a decent time, leaving at a time that would work, coming off the cruise ship, was under $1,000 for flight. So we're talking $4,500. That's not cheap.
That's not cheap.
Goodness gracious. And so you figure, I said $3,500. You're probably looking, if you wanted $100 a day for food and drink, you're looking because it was the Art of Animation was $400, right?
Ish.
And you said Port Orleans was $600.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at $1,000 for that, $2,300 for the cruise, $2,300 or $3,300 plus flights, 4,300 plus 500, you're looking at close to $5,000
For less than a week total.
for 4 days, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth it?
4 years ago, if you would have asked me that very question, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And this is part of the discussion that we've been having.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how I could make... What was the dollar amount I just said?
I don't know. Math hurts my head.
3,300. Basically...
Basically $5,000.
Yeah. With flights, you're looking at $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
What would it take to make that worth it? And that's Disney on the cheap.
But is it? Disney on the cheap, you don't go on a cruise.
Well, okay, it's our Disney on the cheap. Doing what we want to do. It's marking that bucket list of the Gold Castaway or
Right.
the Gold Castaway Club member, completing the fleet.
Getting on the Wish for a short enough time that say, yeah, we've been on it. We don't have to do it again.
Right. Or this is better than we thought. We'll come back on this ship. It's probably not going to be what we say, but we could. We'll go into it with an open mind, right?
Sure-ish.
So what would it take to make it worth it for us? Like $5,000.
We can do a lot with $5,000.
Yeah. And this is coming from folks that love Disney. Like, I'm sitting in our living room as we record this, looking at a statue of Mickey, looking at 10 different Jim Shore Mickeys. Off to my left, there's a Lion King Simba sitting in the window. There's Mickey Hand's picture frame on the piano holding a picture of Candice and I, a Mickey pillow over her left shoulder. She's covered under a Mickey blanket right now. Our dog is named after a Disney princess. She's wearing a Disney shirt.
Me, not the dog.
Yes. So we are Disney fans. Or as the youngins would say, we're Disney stans. But this is a real debate, right?
Very much so. And it makes me probably irrationally sad that this has to be a debate, but it absolutely 100% has to be a debate.
Yeah. And 4 years ago, my guess is what we just planned out would have been half the cost.
I don't know that I'd go that far.
So you don't think some of this is price raising?
I do, but I don't think it would have been by half.
By that much. Yeah. So I'll ask again, what would it take to make like, what would we have to see in all of that pricing to say that $5,000 would be worth that trip?
I think if we could go knowing that it was going to be as magical experience as we've had in the past, I think that would make a huge impact, because as we've said before, we're starting to see the magic change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what it used to be. And I don't think that's just because we've been exposed to more of it, that we know kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. I don't think it's that. I think it's just that attitudes are changing. I don't know. I think if I saw more value in it as well, that would make a difference.
Yeah, and I think some of it too is we're looking at $5,000 and saying that's for less of a trip than we've taken. We're saying that doesn't give us an ocean view or a balcony stateroom.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't give us Old Key West. Mm-hmm. That doesn't give us some of the things that we've come to expect when we travel to Disney. And I think for me, there's a piece of it, like $5,000. Okay, it's $5,000. We'll make more money. We're lucky enough that we're in a spot where if we decide to do this, okay, whatever. But I think for me, there's a little bit of a fear of, are we going to go and be like, okay, this was not worth it, and it's going to taint the rest of our Disney experiences? Is it going to make me want to change what we're thinking about for 2024 as we're thinking about our pilgrimage to the Disney Mecca?
Now, I don't think that's necessarily fair to say because, well, you were at Disneyland a long time ago when you were a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I have not been there. I think when you're starting to talk about Disney World versus Disneyland being actually where Walt walked and where his dream kind of came to life, and some of that nostalgia and some of that history, I think that's a completely different discussion. And I think there's a different price point and all of that goes along with that because of those reasons. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Okay.
I do think, however, that if we decide that $5,000 is okay to spend on the trip that we've just put together and we have a bad time with it, that's going to make that iceberg that you have us headed toward as far as not staying on Disney property when we get to Disneyland that much bigger.
Right.
And the ship going that much faster.
Yeah.
Just warning you.
Yeah, and we're going to end up staying on property at Disneyland.
Yeah, we are.
I know that. I'm going to keep suggesting we don't because all the hotels at Disneyland are, God, we're jumping all over the place, but all the hotels at Disneyland are priced in such a place that they would be the, why did I just forget, like, top tier Disney World hotel?
Deluxe,
thank you, Jesus. Take away my Disney fan card. But yeah, all their hotels are priced at that higher range.
But we know that entire experience is going to be more expensive.
Yeah, because Disneyland is more expensive.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So, yeah, I think we're probably going to end up staying on property in Disneyland anyway. But with this trip, I think that fear, because are we going to put ourselves in a position where we're like, I don't care if I go back to Disney World.
Oh, that hurt my heart just hearing you say that. It really did. But
So
I get where you're coming from. And I think that is why we've been debating on when to go back and when is right to go back.
Yeah. Because I think some of it, too, there's a lot of construction going on. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of changes happening within the parks, around Disney World. There's a lot of things happening right now.
And that's another conversation we've been having, because if we have one day in the park, where do you go?
Yeah. Which one do you choose to try and make sure you get the amount of magic that you want? Yes. We're going at Christmas, so I can see the holiday decorations. Am I going to be disappointed if I don't see the holiday decorations in Magic Kingdom because we choose to go to Epcot?
And yet, if we don't go to Epcot, we're going to miss the Festival of the Holidays.
Right.
Around World Showcase and some of those other things.
Some of our favorite things to do in the entire world are at Animal Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to go get on Rise of the Resistance over at Hollywood Studios.
You can go. I'll wait.
Yeah, that means adding a park hopper to our ticket. Which
is more money.
Right, exactly. And more stress on that day that we're there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, which park do you choose? And so if you're listening, you can probably hear the consternation that we're having is for $5,000, if we're going to spend that, how do we make it what we want it to be? Like one of the things we've said, we'll not get off the ship in Nassau. Number one, we've been there, seen that, done it. We don't need to do it again. So we can explore the ship, do that kind of thing there. That's one of the things that we know will help make it more magical for us by spending a day on the ship when there's not a lot of people on it and just that kind of thing. But how do you choose? Like, there's still enough love for the entire Disney World universe that how do you make it?
There's a whole bunch of well butts.
Right. Like we talked a little bit about first night at Disney Springs. Where do we get a reservation to? There's 17 different places in Disney Springs that I want to try.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as we've talked, we've said, okay, maybe we don't get a reservation at all. And we do a progressive dining and try 5 or 6 different places. We go drinks one place. We get an appetizer of sticky ribs from Morimoto Asia's street food. Then we go to the barbecue place that's a walk-up barbecue place in Disney
Pig.
Springs, and do something there, and like try some of those different places. And that's probably going to be less expensive too than spending 3 or 4 hours sitting down at Morimoto Asia with that experience.
Right.
When you know you're missing out on Art Smith's Homecoming, you know you're missing out on Wine Bar George, you know you're missing out on all those things that we want to try.
Mm-hmm. And as our Disney universe increases a little bit, we now have friends that we want to include while we're there and see them. So it's like we have to take them into consideration as well.
Yeah. So, friends, countrymen, Romans.
Oh, please.
Sorry. It just, I don't know why that popped into my head.
No.
No. Help us decide. Like, what do you think? As we talk about this trip, like, you can hear Candice and I both having hesitation. Like, when we first started talking about this, we're like, this is what we want to do. This is where we want to be. This is where we want to go. But as we look at the price, we look at the value we think we can get from the price, there's a lot of hesitation there, which I've kind of grown up. If there's hesitation there, don't spend the money on it.
Yeah, I don't want to go for the sake of saying we're going. Just say we're going.
Right.
And spend the money and not feel like we spent the money wisely.
Right. Because, and this is the debate that we've had is, okay, do we take that $5,000 trip to Disney in November, December for a 5-day trip, or do we take that $5,000 and go spend 2 weeks in Orange Beach, Alabama in February and get out of the snowy, cold Nebraska winter? Because $5,000 is going to get you 2 weeks or more of a very nice condo in January or February. And then, or even if you say, let's do a week at the beach instead of 2 weeks, and then put that other money towards Disneyland and make that experience extra magical. Do you just sort of say, okay, we're not going to go here, but we're going to pay it forward to ourselves and say we're going to do more here, because we're lucky enough to say we could probably spend $5,000 this year, but if we save it, that's $5,000 that we're not spending in Disneyland next year.
Or it's $5,000 that could go towards something else.
Right. It could go to improving our kitchen, putting new floors in, improving my bourbon bar, whatever.
Oh, Lord. Adulting.
Yeah. Help us out. What do you think, friends? As you listen to this, what decision would you make? I'd be interested in hearing what others think about the conundrum we've put ourselves in as Disney fans. If I told you, Candice, that you needed to make a decision on this today, what would your decision be?
Not to go.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat. But
here comes the well, but.
Well, but then I think, when are we going to get on the Wish? When are we going to complete the fleet? When am I going to see Disney World
for the holidays?
When am I going to, like, I love that idea of a progressive dinner through Disney Springs. When am I going to be able to do that? Are we looking at all of a sudden when we retire and decide that we want to move closer to Florida that we have to wait that long to do that kind of thing?
No.
Yeah. So that's the conundrum.
Is it something, here's another thing that just popped into my head, and I don't know why it just popped into my head right now. Do we split it up?
Just do a cruise?
Just do the Wish so we can say that we've completed the fleet, get our gold lanyards, plan a longer trip for holiday season at Disney World in the future.
In a year or two.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But we don't know what prices are going to be. We don't know anything. But, I mean, some of that stuff you just have to go on blind faith, trust in pixie dust, and do what makes sense.
Yeah, and it, like, just going on the Wish and just doing the cruise, I have to get out of my own head on that.
Explain.
And so we live in Nebraska. Mm-hmm. A 3-day cruise is a long weekend.
And yet there's so much stress in that long weekend.
So
it makes me nuts.
We have to fly the day before.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should do that anyway.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to go on a cruise, you go in the day before it leaves. Just account for any
delays.
Either way, even if we choose not to stay, like we could stay at the airport or whatever.
Yeah.
That night, and probably even still go to Disney Springs.
Yeah.
And then the next day get up and go get on the cruise and then come home. I need to be okay with that.
And yet, how are you okay with that if we are so close to Disney World that you don't go?
We've done that before.
We were at least at one park. We went to Epcot when we did that before.
Okay. Yeah, so I think being that close to the parks, I think I'd be able to deal with that okay. In my mind, it's more basically 2 days worth of flying for a 3-day cruise.
Yeah.
Like that in my mind. Like, I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I might as well just go for a week. Like, that's how my brain works.
Right.
And that if I'm going to fly, if I'm going to spend $1,000 on flights, I might as well just be there for a week. Which is why our vacations are usually more expensive than they need to be, because we're both kind of, oh, okay, it's not worth it to fly to Florida for a 3-day cruise. Let's make it a 5-day or a 7-day. Mm-hmm. Make that flight worth it.
Which, if you think about a Disney cruise being the quote unquote relaxing part of a vacation, that's stressful having to relax that quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Only to go back and get stressed out at the airport.
Yeah, because as you were talking a little bit about splitting it and doing the cruise, my first thought was, if we're going to do that, let's do a 4-day cruise. Which adds an extra $1,000 to the price of the cruise, probably.
Yes.
You go from a $2,300 cruise to probably a $3,200 cruise. Mm-hmm. Plus extra beverages, adult beverages. Mm-hmm. But you do get a day at sea. Mm-hmm. See, number one, this is why we're not wealthy. Because we like to spend our money this way. But yeah, so again,
we understand completely that this entire discussion and this entire conundrum, if you want to put it that way, is coming from a place of great privilege.
Yes.
We want to say that we understand that, and we feel very blessed. I don't even know that blessed is the right word. We feel very lucky that we have this privilege,
right,
to be able to have this discussion.
Right. Most people, I think most people, when they're hearing a conversation like this, are talking about a once in a lifetime trip. They're like, most Disney fans are like, can we do this? How do we make this worth it for our family if we know we're not going to be back for 5 or 10 years? We're talking about, can we make this work for a stopover until we get to Disneyland next year? That is
after we've already come off of a Alaskan cruise earlier this year.
Right.
So this is kind of, I don't know, ridiculous for us to be even having this conversation. But
yeah, now that we've said that out loud, I feel like people listening to this are probably screaming at whatever their listening device is right now. You people suck.
But we just need you all to know that we understand that we are coming from a place of great privilege.
Yeah. Okay. So we're coming up on the end of this, but I want to know, if we do this trip, which park are you going to push for us to go to? And why?
I don't want to say it.
Say it. Say it.
Epcot.
Just because of the Festival of the Holidays?
Mm-hmm.
And we've always wanted to go, like, eat around the world, drink around the world and just like explore World Showcase without
anything else to do.
Right.
Yeah. And I think with being there during a festival, we've been there during festivals before, but we don't ever get to partake because we always have other dining arrangements made and we're always so full that where if we're there and sort of relying on the food in the booths and being able to share different things, we'll be able to experience more. And I think it would just be more immersive experience that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you almost have me convinced for Epcot. I still think to myself, Main Street USA at Christmas is probably just to die for.
It's beautiful. It will be more beautiful if they put the dream lights back on the castle.
Right. How is Christmas done at the rest of Magic Kingdom outside of Main Street USA and the Castle Hub?
It's all decorated. Everything is decorated for Christmas.
Like, I know you have the Jingle Cruise instead of the Jungle Cruise.
And there's just little touches of decorations everywhere.
Whereas at Epcot, it's probably going to be like Christmas threw up.
It's kind of that way throughout property, quite honestly. I mean, it's just like, bleh. Gingerbread house here, big giant tree here.
Yeah, I'm just
sparkle
thinking...
balls somewhere else.
I'm just thinking like... I'm just thinking like Magic Kingdom, though, outside of Main Street USA and the Castle Hub. I know they can do a lot with Christmas in Tomorrowland, but like Fantasyland or what are the other lands if you turn left?
Adventureland, Frontierland.
Yeah, that I think it would be harder to Christmasize that.
You'd be surprised. It's
Okay.
all there.
Okay.
It's all there.
But so probably Epcot would be more Christmas the way I would expect Christmas.
I think so.
Okay. I think you have me sold on Epcot.
And ideally, this wouldn't be like a one and done sort of thing where this is the only time we're going to be there during the holidays. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Because when I think about seeing Disney World at Christmas, what pops into my head is Magic Kingdom.
And the Snope on Main Street.
Right. And Main Street USA being decorated like turn of the century Christmas. That's what pops into my head. And I'm again, talking of a place of fear, I'm afraid I would be disappointed if I didn't see that.
That's a valid point. But you think about how Epcot is decorated in World Showcase. And it's sort of a cultural Christmas experience in every one of the pavilions. Yeah. I know.
Then I go back and I think about that picture you sent me of the Muppet Christmas Carol in the
Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Mickey's Christmas Carol in the windows. Okay, we need one of you listeners to do one of two things. We need you to either make a decision for us and tell us which one park we're going to go to, or, and I say this completely jokingly, fund an extra day so we can do both. I'm hearing crickets from our entire audience right now, I think.
Now, do you mean an extra day in the parks or an extra day on the ship?
Parks.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I am hesitant enough about the Wish that I am at the spot where I just want to get on it for as short a period of time, see what it's about, and then get back on my merry little way.
I agree. Which is kind of terrifying to think about. Because the cruise we went on last year, we had never heard of the line, never been on one of their ships, never heard a whole lot about it, but we were all in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like, let's go.
Yeah.
And this, with a line that we are familiar with and have been on every other one of the ships, we're like,
Yeah, there's just something about the Wish that isn't setting right with me, and I want to go. I want to confirm that or deny.
Change my mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm going to go into it with an open mind because a Disney cruise is still going to be a Disney cruise. But like you and I have talked, we're not going to go to two of the main dining room dinners when we go. We're going to go get into again, this is going to add more expense, but we're going to go into the fancy pants restaurants instead.
Or the buffet.
Yeah, we've talked about doing a lot of new things that we've not typically done. And some of that comes with comfort with the Disney line of knowing we can do that now and being able, oh, okay, we get it. We can do that now. that's also probably where some of our hesitancy is coming from. We're talking about changing a lot from how we've ever done a Disney trip before, and we don't know if we're going to like it. $5,000 is a lot to not know if you're going to like something or not.
Agreed. But in years past where we've taken Disney vacations, we've typically stayed at new places to us. Like, very rarely have we done repeat hotels and resorts. Key West would be about the only one I can think of. But it's never been that big of a deal to us before. And now it's like, are we going to like that? Are we going to like spending that kind of money on what we're talking about?
A less than experience, and I'm using air quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's I'm psychoanalyzing myself. I think I just figured out what my issue is. Okay. Anything else that you want our listeners to try and help us decide in this conversation?
I can't think of what it would be other than, I don't know.
Bear with us with our first world problems.
Yeah, the whole thing kind of gives me palpitations, actually, which is probably a sign from the universe that we need to not do this. But
yeah, we can keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Every time we have a conversation, we get a little closer to a decision. And I think the little closer we get to the decision is a little bit further away from a yes every time we talk. But we're still on that. We're still walking on the tightrope. We're just leaning towards the no side a little bit, trying to regain our balance. But yeah. Okay. Thank you for listening in. We appreciate you all. Again, season 3 will probably not tell you every episode that we have a different style, but if you can't tell by now from going back and listening to past and the new episodes, we have a completely different, like we're trying to just be much more conversational with you all and that kind of thing. And we hope you're feeling that and enjoying it as we go through. Would love to have you give us feedback on all of our socials. You know where to find us. We always put them in our episode descriptions and that kind of thing as well. So reach out to us. Let us know what your thoughts are. Tell us what we got wrong in terms of our planning. Tell us why our thought process is wrong, either yes or no. Help us make this decision. We'd love it.
Even if it's a giant get over yourselves.
Yeah. Yes. Just send us on our social medias a great big middle finger up at our discussion for this one. And with that, remember, there's always a great big beautiful tomorrow.
And we'll see you real soon.